Today we're making melodic techno. In melodic techno is super important the kick and the bass, so let's start with this. I have a basic kick that sounds like this. It's good, but it sounds a bit boxy. So let's start with this EQ boosting a bit the highs, and these are just for automations in the song. Then I have this EQ where I'm trying to avoid this boxy sound. Sounds a lot tighter, and this is just to boost a bit the low end. But the thing is not heavy enough, so with this saturation I'm going to boost here in the low end, as you can see, from 40 Hz below. A bit of drive, boosting on the lowest frequency, not doing anything here, but as you can see it's just a 50% on the mix. Has a lot more low end. Finally, I have this volume shaper where I'm basically cutting the length of the kick, so this way it doesn't fight for the place with the sub bass. Now that we have the kick, go for the bass. I found this bass sample, and I like the rhythm and so, but I'm gonna pitch it to semitones up. But of course, just using this sample is not enough, and I don't really like doing this. I want to add my own sounds. But we could say this helped to inspire. I decided to take this preset, but with processing it sounds like this. And then I decided to take this one, with processing is like this. But for this one I did something different. I wanted this to be wide, to be in the sides. But if I just use the tune, or I just use any kind of widening plugin, it loses a bit of strength, a bit of that gritty sound. For example, we can use the wider. It sounds a bit softer. So what I did is clone it, put this one 50% to the left and this one 50% to the right. But if you just clone it and do this, it's gonna sound in the center because it's the same sound. So this is the left one. I want you to focus on the fine of these two, and now this is the right. As you can see, it's not the same fine. So basically it's not exactly the same note. This small difference in the pitch is going to help to make both sounds a bit different, and this way get a bit wider sound. Also, this is the left, focus on this phase, and then here we have the right, is not the same. So at the same time, the waveform is not exactly the same moment, so it also helps on the width filling. But if we focus on the sample, not every note is the same. This one is louder, this one is a bit more quiet, this one is louder, more quiet. So I wanted to get a bit the same rhythm, groove, vibe. So what I needed to do is to send the velocity to the cutoff in all the presets, and then in the piano roll move the velocity to get a bit of the same groove and vibe of the sample. So now that we have this, sounds pretty full, but we can improve it, of course. Camera Crusher, OTT, Decapitator, some EQ, Saturn on the highs, some Soothe for some resonance, a limiter to cut the peaks, and finally some sidechain. So this is before, and this is after. It sounds way more in your face, more gritty, cleaner, but of course now we need the sub bass. For the sub bass I had to use this preset that sounds pretty full. Just use a high cut to remove all of this that had here. And this volume shaper that is exactly the opposite waveform of the kick. So this way they fit perfectly. And as you can see, the sub bass is just one note. It doesn't have that rhythm, it doesn't have that velocity thing, because I want the sub bass to be stable, strong and full all the time. Something I like to do a lot is to not keep the bass like this all the time in one note and have some changes. So here I made a small bass progression that I'm also doing in the sample by pitching it up and down. As this is melodic techno, something really important apart from the kick and the bass are the drums. And for the drums I'm going to use this. Wildcrow, that's too much, you don't need so many samples. Shh. Here we have a lot of things, so let's go one by one. First we have the hi-hats, but as you can see there are two hi-hats, so this way it sounds stronger. Just one with two. A lot better. Then we have the clap that, as you can see right here, is also a layer of 3 samples. And of course these are like the basics. As you can see, I'm adding some reverb because this way it gives a bit more depth to the song. Sometimes I use reverb, sometimes not. Just depends on the track you're making and if you think you need it. But this is not enough. This is going to be super basic. So I decided to add some drum loops. We have some hi-hats, then a full loop. Then we have this. But as you can see here in this automation, I'm reducing the volume. So this way this is not that loud compared to the other ones. And finally, a right going with the kick that has some volume automation doing like a sidechain. And last but not least, I have this small hi-hat here that is adding a little bit extra groove. Alright, so now we have the kick, we have the drums, we have the bass. What else do we need? it depends on you. You can go with melodies using synth, you can go with vocals, you can go with vocal chops, you can do anything. You can even leave it like this if you want to. But for me, this feels more like an intro. So what I want to do in this case is to use first a vocal and then go for synth. So it's way the drop evolves. What vocals I'm going to use? In this case, what I want to do is to use Spanish vocals. Why? Because I like them. Because it feels good. Because why not? For the vocals, I have this one that, as you can see, has a lot of cuts, volumes ups, volumes downs, just what it needs. And the vocal itself sounds like this. It's just this. As you can see, it has a lot of reverb, delay, a lot of space, because I wanted to make it sound quite big or with a lot of depth because of the melodic techno vibe. And then the vocal repeats over and over, repeats here, but I'm going to try to do several things in the song to avoid making it repetitive. Just stay in the video. So the idea for this is to have here a build up and then here the drop. And just like magic, boom, we have a build up. Now, it's so simple. First, we have a downlifter here, and as you can see, maybe feels chaotic, but it's just an automation that is going to making go left and right. Then on the bass, what I decided to do is to filter it, coming from the highs to the lows. So you start feeling the rhythm of the drop, normal uplifter, an impact at the beginning, and then some drums. I have the hi-hats of the drop, but with a filter. You don't hear them here, and you start hearing them. A loop, same thing, filtered. And then these snares that, as you can see, have a rhythm. And here they have a pitch down and pitch up to have another vibe. So right now we have this. Yeah, I don't like how it starts. What I'm going to do is to take all these drums and then have them since the beginning. This way the drop is going to evolve more and it's going to start a bit darker. That is what I want. Just take all of this, put it in the second part of the drop, and maybe at the middle of the drop we can start adding some drums, something like this. It feels a bit empty, so I'm going to add this. It's just a rim shot, so it's not a full clap, but you start hearing that clap vibe. Now the drop starts darker, but it still needs some strength at the beginning, so you just need effects. So I'm going to add this downlifter with a bit of sidechain, then this crash, and then something that I like to use a lot are stabs. So now the drop is like this. We can also do something to introduce better these drums because yeah, I need something for the transition. So first I'm going to add this stab again here. We can add some crashes. Here I'm creating like a bit of rising effect, so we can add an uplifter. But we still need something here, you know, for transition. I'm going to add this clap effect. But look, what I'm going to do in the end is this. I took this noise sample and I created here the rhythm. Apart from the rhythm, I decided here to do a panning left and right on this 4, and then here we have at the beginning a little bit, so it adds a bit extra energy. And now we have this. It helps a lot more on the transition. Okay, but Wildcrow, what are you gonna do in the second part of the drop? Two things. First, have the bass progression, and second, have a melody. The bass progression is this one. And then for the melody, I'm gonna go for something basic, but I'm gonna try to add a really interesting effect. So this way, the interesting and complex effect is gonna complement the basic melody. So the melody is going to be this one. And we repeat. Then you know I like to change things a lot. So at the end, I'm having this. For one of the leads, I'm going to have this. But if we add some OTT, EQ, saturation, it sounds like this. A bit cleaner and brighter. And then for the second lead, I decided to go with Diva. That sounds like this. A lot more kind of melodic techno. Then if we combine those two in a group and we do some OTT, EQ, saturation, delay, blah, 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 it sounds like this. Way better. But here comes the trick. What I'm gonna do is, I have lower notes and higher notes in different octaves, okay? The lower notes are going to have a delay on the right, and the higher notes are going to have a delay on the left. So the first thing I need to do is to divide this, okay? As you can see, lead 1 high, lead 1 low, lead 2 high, lead 2 low. The high leads are here and go to this delay bus. The delay is simple, just this with the echo void, but as you can see, it's panned to the left. Then the low lead, so low melody, goes to this bus where it has exactly the same delay, but it's panned to the right. So let's listen first to these leads. Of course, as the delay is ping pong, it sounds in both sides, but as it's pan, it sounds more like in the left and in the center. And then if we listen to the low leads, it sounds more on the right. This way, both sides of delays sound different. Last but not least, an extra reverb, and now all of these sound like this. As you can see, it has a lot of depth and space. So we're going to add them here, but you know, just having them in the second part of the drop directly, I like to have a bit more transition, so I'm going to introduce them here. So I decided to add them here, remove some of the notes, as you can see, and of course have them with a filter. Also, to not have the second part of the drop that different from the first one, what I'm gonna do is, instead of having the main vocal, I'm gonna have just some words of it. And I wanted some ear candy to make it a bit more interesting, so I decided to have this loop, then this reverse and not reverse sound, and finally this hover. It adds more texture, more background sounds, and makes it a bit more interesting. So just like this, we have a melodic techno drop. In this case, I have two different sounds. First, I have a vocal, and then I have a melody with some leads. From here, to make the breakdowns, of course, it depends just completely on you, on your taste, on what you want to do. But I'm gonna show you what I did. Instead of ending the drop right here and go directly to a breakdown, I wanted to create like a bridge. In this bridge, I decided to remove the drums, so this way we go like a bit down on the energy, but I wanted to keep the bass. But instead of having all the bass sounds, I decided to mute this mid bass that I added myself. Also, as you can hear, it has a filter, and the sub bass at the end is getting also a low cut, a filter, to start removing all that bass energy to go to the breakdown. Starts like this and ends like this. Just some effects, and on the melody I decided to filter it also. Hey, but Wildcrow, what the hell is this? This is just some pads. I decided to make these chords and they sound like this. And to introduce them better, I decided to add them at the end of the drop. So now it sounds like this. We go to the break, but without losing that much energy from the drop, so it's where people keeps dancing, so it's like a bridge. But the idea is then here to have the breakdown. What do I have in this break? It's just this. Wildcrow, that's so short for a breakdown. Just wait. So I have this reese bass, keeping the main note all the time, and then at the end, we have that bass progression, then some effects, so the transition, this one is going left and right, ambient sounds, and I keep the pads. Also at the end going down and up. But what did I do to the vocal? I said earlier that to avoid making the vocal too repetitive, I wanted to do different things. So first, in the drop here, we just repeat the part, so it's not all the time the same vocal. And then here what I decided to do is to cut it. First I have this, with a lot more reverb, and then here I created like my own delay. And then just this part. This way, even if the vocal is short and is repetitive, as I'm doing this, it's not gonna feel that repetitive in the entire song. If you just keep those 4 phrases all the time, it's going to be so boring. And what I'm gonna have here, the build-up. But the build-up is not going to be 8 bars, it's going to be 16 bars. Why I'm doing this? Because what I wanted with this song is to keep the energy all the time. That's why when the drop ends, I keep a part with the rhythm and so, then I have a short breakdown, but I bring back the energy again. But if I just make a normal 8-bar build-up, the song is going to be so short. So I wanted to make it 16 bars and keep the energy going up all the time. Okay, so what do we have here? A lot of things. Let's keep the vocal for the end because it's a bit more interesting. First I have the drop bass line to start adding that rhythm. I have the reese bass to keep the strength. Of course, I have snares that, as you can see, has some filters. Then we have the drop drums to start having that rhythm also. Some effects, of course. I keep the pads, more effects. Here I have some arps. This one is new, but this one is the one in the drop. So what do we have new? I have here the leads. But the most important thing in this build-up is the vocals. What they have in the vocals is several things. First we have this one. That then if we go here, and then if we go here, and then if we go here, as you can see, the format is changing with this automation right here. This way the vocals are not the same all the time, they change, they have variations. And then also have this one that they have in the drop to make it more interesting. Also with this I'm increasing the reverb of the vocals and it sounds like this. It's repetitive but changing. And finally in the middle of the build-up I have a kick to keep that rhythm. So this build-up sounds like this. To finally come back to the normal vocals and then come back to a drop. But in this case I'm not going to start like with the first drop because I think it will be like getting a lot of energy to then go way too down. What I'm going to do is to start with a bit of the melodic vibe, so I'm going to add the leads here. First a reverse sound, the leads, and then we start a drop with them. But the bass is not going to be the melodic one. First is going to be the stable one. So it's where we keep a bit of the raw but with the melodies and so. Also I'm going to have the vocal but not the full vocal, just this. And then in the second part of the drop I'm going to add the melodic bass, but I'm going to introduce an extra lead sound that is this. So guys, this is how I made my new song called Favorito. This is out everywhere: Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube. If you want to listen to the entire song with the best quality possible, just go there and listen to it, enjoy it, add it to your playlist, share it with your friends, play it in your DJ sets, whatever. But in this video, let's check the end result. And remember to leave a like and subscribe and all of this.
Los otros no han detenido. Era mi lugar favorito. Ey, man, no me celen un ratito. Contigo todo es una chimba. Los otros no han detenido.